Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to Dirty Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. It is already February. I mean, technically, it is still January for me, but by the time you hear this, it is already February. See, that is the fun thing about creating content. You literally have no clue as to when I'm recording this unless I say it. So, for all you know, it is August 1977. I could be fully lying to you and masking it with some editing magic. But I would never lie to you because we're best friends. So, in fact, I am recording this on January 29th. I usually record on the Friday before I upload on Sunday, or sometimes also on Saturday, meaning that I have to stay up late on Saturday to have everything edited by Sunday noon, which is when I usually upload. But because I had 2 weeks off, I thought I might give myself a head start and just do the thing I love doing the most, aka podcasting. And I thought about the fact that I can create a couple episodes to have up my sleeve for when time is limited and I'm super preoccupied with things I cannot not tend to. Because let me tell you, when I had those 5 deadlines in a span of a week, I was a bit on the verge of jumping off of a cliff. Well, I live in the Netherlands, so there are no cliffs here, but metaphorically speaking, you know what I mean. And I feel like this will give me more creative freedom because I will not be so pressed by time and I can take more time to create something I am proud of, not just something to meet a deadline, so to say. I don't want, like, as I've already mentioned in the episode in which I am setting the tone, so to say, I don't want this to be a place in which I feel like I must be. I want this to be a place where I get to be. I want this to be an enjoyable process, and setting deadlines and creating pressure around the creative process is just not going to be beneficial. So I thought I would just now, when I have the motivation and ambition and desire to create a couple episodes a week, aka two, I will just do this and take advantage of this because life is unpredictable. And sometimes I end up in a situation in which I want to record and I want to create a podcast, but I am too pressured by some other external conditions, and that just creates pressure in the process. And as I've already mentioned a couple of times, I don't want this. So now I am not only taking advantage of this, but it is also extremely fun because I love podcasting so much, and now getting to do it more than once a week is just so enjoyable. And I wish this was my full-time job. So, like, guys, share it with friends, rate this podcast. I want this to be my full-time job because it is genuinely bringing me so much fulfillment and so much purpose and so much joy that I don't want to do anything else with my time and my life and my energy. It's just this is my soul. But anyway, so as for February, and I wanted to say, like, shout out to you and congratulations to you for making it to February. Well, if you did, or like if I did, like, what if, not to put it out in the universe because I have a trip that awaits me, but like, what if I don't make it to February? No need to make it dark now. Anyways, it is February technically for you. And how many of you are still sticking to the New Year's resolutions? Or did we actually leave those in January 3rd, which felt like it was 7 years ago? January, I swear to God, it is the longest month of the year. And ironically, it is followed by the shortest one. And I know, technically, January is not the longest month, but yeah, there are like other months that have also 31 days, but January is the only month of the year which makes you feel those 31 days. And I need to know that this is a universal experience. Please don't let this be a unique experience because it will be extremely isolating. And I feel like this is maybe because we put a lot of pressure on January with all the New Year's resolutions and this feeling of a new start. And I don't know what exactly the science behind it is, but January always feels like it lasts at least 3 months. But it is always only January. For example, May also has 31 days, but it is not nearly as long as January. It is as if with every month passing, time speeds up, and by the time it is July, a month feels like a week. But then when it comes time for seasonal depression, time slows down, of course, so that you can feel the longevity and burn of seasonal depression, and that's just life. And it's like you're in those moments, life is driven by inertia, the inertia of continuing with your responsibilities. And then when January is around the corner again, you start making these grand promises and you have the desire to change everything. And this concept of a new beginning gives you the sense of resetting the clock, as we've already previously explored. And so you tend to perceive time, or at least I tend to perceive time differently. But then I either fall back into my old routines or I just follow the newly established ones. And again, inertia comes into play and I just don't feel time passing. And I don't think I have time blindness. I just think I am on average an overworked person. And when I have nothing to distinguish my days from one another, and especially in the middle of the year, they just flow into each other, especially summer days. Like, why does winter get to last 7 years and summer is just an hour and a half on a good day, on a good year? Well, how is that fair? Because Phineas and Ferb lied to me, because their 104 days of summer vacation, their 104 days of summer vacation lasted years. And mine are just a 20-minute lunch break. Make it make sense, because it literally doesn't compute in my brain. But as for January, in January, when you are working at least for a week, let's say, let's be optimistic, on your New Year's resolutions, you feel every single day. And it's like, by the time it's the 15th, you're thinking that it's the 31st. Wow, amazing. The 31st. And it's like you've like experienced so much, even if not like actually, but like emotionally, because of all this pressure and the tendencies of like the new start, consequences and whatever. It's like by the 15th, you're like, oh my God, like, how is it not the 31st already? How is it only halfway done? And I just honestly wish we felt all days, not just the January ones. And not, I don't mean it in a depressing way. I just mean like, I really wish in general we were more present and sensible of time passing. Like, please tell me this is not a unique experience. Like, I highly doubt it is a unique experience, because everyone I talk to in August, no matter who, no matter when, and no matter where, is like, how is it already August? And I feel like there are 3 times in which we say, how is it already blank? It is May. It is always and forever May. I feel like it's always and forever the first one, or at least April. Let's give or take like a month. Then it is August/September, and then November/December. Those are the 3 times of the year in which we tend to say, how is it already blank? Because those come with like temporal landmarks. And these 3 periods feel like they're always the biggest reality checks as to how fast time is actually flying. And I just really wish we perceive the years as a long time. I mean, a year is still a long time, but as I have talked about this before, it's like the older you get, it is like time moves by so fast that you're constantly trying to catch up. And after you've settled in the new year, time just begins to fly until it's December and the circle repeats itself and you're like slowly easing into the new year. And then by the time it's March, you're like, okay, we're good to go. We are a cog in a machine and we're not even thinking about time passing because time is just passing and we have nothing else to do and we cannot do anything about it and we're just surviving. Like, I kid you not, the other day I had a full-on existential crisis about how in less than 2 months, so I had this existential crisis on the 27th, and I was thinking about how in literally 2 months I will turn 23. And I just got comfortable being 22. It's like the second you find the perfect spot, you have to move. Like the second you find, metaphorically, a seat in your overcrowded train, you need to get off at the next stop. You know what I hope I achieve this year? I hope to perceive days, and I hope I perceive time the way I do in January. Because every month, I swear, it's like, oh, it is the 3rd, and then I wake up the next day and it is already the 29th. And I'm just confused as to where did those weeks go. And it's always the end of the month, no matter which month, the very last week, it feels like it consists only of Monday and then Sunday, and that's it. Well, that is if the week is ideal, aka the last day of the month falls on a Sunday. I swear to God, there's nothing more satisfying than looking at a calendar and seeing that a month begins on a Monday. Why did people have to set up the calendar the way they did? They could have put more effort. Like, this is me, of course, like it's so much easy to judge now, thousands of years later, from an outside perspective, but they could have put more effort into it, and they could have put more effort into dividing the days equally across the months somehow, even though it is like an odd number. But just making each month start on a Monday, I think that would be extremely slaveful. And I don't know if that's possible actually, because again, odd days, but it just sounds about right. Like, what if you just add an extra month? You know what I find extremely fascinating about the months, and this is something I found out only last year in one of my courses. So basically, what I didn't know is that the months are named after ancient Roman goddesses and gods, and they're also supposed to represent numbers. And the thing is, July is named after Julius Caesar, and August is named after Augustus Caesar. And because they're squeezed in there in the middle of the year, they mess up the numbering. So September, it is supposed to mean 7. Then October is supposed to mean 8th, and November is supposed to mean 9, and December is supposed to mean 10. But because of the squeezing in of Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar, they're like messed up, and like what is supposed to be the 7th month is now the 9th. And I just find this so extremely fascinating. And what is also fascinating to me is the way the names of the days of the week developed, and they are named after celestial bodies, like the sun and the moon, like Sunday from the sun and Monday from the moon. But then the other days are named after gods. But for example, in Bulgarian, they represent numbers. So what you call Tuesday comes from the word that you used to say second. Wednesday is supposed to mean middle, like the middle of the week. Thursday comes from the word for 4th. Friday comes from 5th. And then for Sunday, what is extremely interesting, I personally find, is that it derives from the verb that means not working, not doing. And it's basically connected to the fact that on the 7th day, God took a rest after creating the world and like the universe. So like on the seventh day, you're not supposed to do anything. You're supposed to rest. And that is why Sunday is not named after the sun in Bulgarian, but it is named after the activity of not doing anything. And I just find this extremely fascinating. But anyways, let's not nerd out about this more than I have to. I just find this fascinating because it is so like linguistics and anthropology, they're like stunning sciences which tell us so much about the society we live in. And I'm just so fascinated with those stuff. Like, why is it that we do the things we do, and why is it that we do them the way we do them? I just think that's fascinating. And basically, I think I came across a post recently about having the perfect month layout in February. Wait, let me pull out my calendar. Yeah, okay, I just checked. So, to people who consider Sunday to be the first day of the week, because in certain cultures, Sunday is the first day of the week. So, for those cultures, February 2026 will be the perfect month because the first is on a Sunday and the 28th is on a Saturday. And for the rest of the world who considers Monday to be the first day of the week, we will have this in 2027 with February again, with the first being a Monday and the 28th being a Sunday. And you know what I don't get about calendars? When people use different formatting. How does the format month/day/year make sense? It has never and will never make sense to me. And I think that day/month/year is far superior because you start from the smaller thing, day, and then you move to a larger, aka month, and then you go to the all-encompassing, aka the year. I cannot begin to explain to you how annoyed I get when I see, for example, the 13th of January written not as 13/1, but as 1/13. And sure, that is because I was raised in a culture that has adopted this type of formatting. And yes, I may be biased, but can we just like agree that this is the superior date formatting because it makes logical sense, like moving from a smaller to a bigger thing? And I hate when I'm reading something that is formatted like month, day, year, and I don't know that it's formatted like this because this is not where my brain in like immediately goes, because the way I see dates is like day, month, year. And I hate it when I read something like this and I don't know that it's formatted like this and I have no indication that they are reversed. So I just like am struggling to perceive the day that's supposed to be perceived. Like for instance, 9/11. I the hashtag never forget. So even though I wasn't there, I wasn't even born then. Never forget. So if you just write down on a piece of paper 9/11, I will perceive it as the 9th of November. Only if you speak to me and you say the words 9/11 will I perceive it as the 11th of September. And that is only because it is the thing it is. Like if you just say 9/11 without like I will not perceive it as the 11th of September if it wasn't like the thing it is. And honestly, okay, this is a dumb moment, but when I was little, I simply didn't know, and I thought I had cracked the code and I was just like a mastermind because I thought that 9/11, the emergency code for the US, was 9/11, like 911, because of 9/11. I thought it was such a terrible tragedy that it came to symbolize emergency in the States, and in honor of everyone who passed on 9/11, they just, set the way to reach hell by remembering them. And yeah, that's complete nonsense and has nothing to do with that. 911 was selected as the emergency number way before 9/11 happened because it was easy to remember and you could reach all emergency parties with that number. And I am so happy that in Bulgaria we also adopted the universal in Europe 112 because when I was little, we had different numbers for the hospital, the police, and the fire department. And you were required, like in school, you were taught, or maybe it started even as early as kindergarten. I don't really remember. It was like a long time ago. But basically, they required us to memorize all three numbers. And I just, I was confused and I would get them confused because, as far as I remember, one of them was 150, the other one was 160, and the third one was 165. And there was also, I think, a 166, but I don't know which, like, what you would reach if you called 166. But, like, I now genuinely cannot tell you which one is which, and I felt so much more at ease when we adopted the European 112 because in a situation of pressure and emergency, the last thing you should have to worry about is whether you dial 165 or 166. And on that note, there's a little thing I need to criticize quickly. There should be no ads played before any first aid clips on YouTube. I don't give a single flying fuck how much you would profit off of this. Getting an unskippable ad can be the thing that makes or breaks the situation. And in some situations, every second counts. And I don't need to be persuaded to purchase something before I'm able to save a life. And I think that should be a regulation. And I like, if someone from YouTube is listening, because of course they are, please remove all the ads like that are to be played before or in the middle of a first aid instructional video. I feel like the respective parties are already profiting enough of people's health, so let's leave access to those life-saving things unrestricted, please. Or is that too liberal and anti-free market for you? I don't know. But if we don't fix this societal issue, there's another one we should tend to. And man, what an amazing segue I just did. I just need you to appreciate the segue. Guys, we need to talk about a really pressing societal issue. Something that affects us all. Something that speaks as to who we are as a society. Instagram changed its layout. I know. I am upset too. No, but like for real though. We were so used to the square layout that now this left aligned rectangles just don't sit right. And it especially ruins the magic and the aesthetic of people who work on putting a particular vibe to their grid. Or like, for example, artists who build an overarching image in their grid from like the separate pictures. And sure, like it does still allow you to revert it to square, but it then adds this ugly frame around it. And again, just ruins the vibe. And like, if we're not using social media just for the vibes, what's the point then? And basically, Instagram said like new year, new me. And very interesting that this happened right around like the TikTok ban. I feel like I have been mentioning the TikTok ban for like the third episode now, but it's like whatever. And like Instagram is having an existential crisis. And when it first appeared, I thought it was a glitch. And I was so hoping that it was a glitch. But honestly, I mean, like, it isn't that deep. It's not deep at all. It doesn't matter at all. And it isn't that serious, but it just seems to show that social media platforms just add updates that nobody asked for and nobody wants just to keep the conversation flowing. That is like, for example, when Instagram added the story option or like the story like option. At first we were all super displeased, but we got accustomed to it because we had no other choice. And now liking a story is just a love language in itself. Although I have to admit, I like random people's stories and I don't think anything of it, but whenever someone likes my story, especially a non-regular story liker, I just think that this is them confessing their love and admiration of me. God, we live in such a sad world that these are the things that we have started to give meaning to. It is just crazy. Mind you, and I'm not over exaggerating, like I was, you know what? Yeah, I will blast this person out here. They're not even listening to this anymore. Like, they've never listened to this. Like, they full on told me, I'm not going to listen to your podcast because it makes me feel bad about myself. So one day I opened my phone to a novel of a message, and literally the first thing I thought, because like I haven't received like that long of a message since I was like 13, which is when like you would profess your love to your friend in a long birthday message at midnight, or like when you would have like a stupid little fight and you would have it all over chat because you didn't have the balls to actually go to a person and talk to them. So I hadn't received something like this like in 10 years, and it was a bit triggering. But literally the first thing I thought about was that line in Ain't Shit by Doja Cat, where she says like 10-page text could wrote a book. So I received a message, and in that message, the person who was texting me went on and on about how they like my stories and I'm a terrible friend for not reciprocating this because I don't like their stories. And when I tell you, the woman was too stunned to speak. What, like, how do you reply? What do you even say to this? Have we, like, really regressed so much as a society that a single like on someone's story is now the scale on which we measure friendship? As you can imagine, that person is no longer in my life, but because I don't want anyone inspecting every single move I make online and judging me based off of it. And before you come out here and tell me they just want you to reciprocate, like this is their love language, they just want attention, don't even. Because there's a lot more to this story with incredible manipulation and gaslighting tactics that I was just taken aback by their talent to pull it off. But I am more taken aback by the fact that I could, in the middle of it all, recognize that I was like, what was going on, and that I could recognize like the manipulation thing and not let myself be manipulated. So that's a massive win for me. It like story of like anyways. But like a thing I really don't like that Instagram added is showing you who of the people you follow like the real. I don't need to know that. Well, I do because I am nosy and I do whatever. But I don't need them to know what I have liked. Now, I kid you not, since they like added this feature, I have started being extremely mindful of my liking activity because I don't want anyone seeing what I see and engage with because it is none of their business. And something has to really impress me for me to like it, and that's why I only like the most stupid things ever. Do you guys remember back in the day when Instagram had a separate page that showed you the activity of people you follow literally by the minute? Like it showed you what they liked, whose posts they commented on, what they commented, and who they followed. Like it showed everything. That was straight up crazy. But like as a devoted online stalker, I loved that. Although speaking of online stalking, if it is online, like I mean on Instagram, if you've posted something on Instagram and it is available to the public, is it stalking in the traditional sense of stalking? Like, I don't know. I know this all sounds so ridiculous, and like just imagine having this conversation with a child from the 1700s. That would send them into a coma, and then they die because back then medicine wasn't as developed as it is today to treat social media induced shocks. Although you have to give Instagram credit for changing a lot of things on a societal level. And there are many, and I mean many. But if we're sticking to the whole changing the grid layout thing, Instagram, well, maybe not only Instagram, but it is definitely a big contributor. It changed how we take pictures because the dimension it allows, or at least allowed, I don't know how it is now with the whole new thing. So like I would stick to like my perception of the dimensions that used to be. So it would accommodate vertically taken pictures because if you took a horizontal, a big portion of the image would be cropped out to fit into the dimensions they require. So what I have noticed is that people take in general more vertical rather than horizontal pictures. And I'm not saying that this is a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that it is a thing. Because also that is the natural, so to call it, way you would hold your phone. But when we're talking about digital cameras, for instance, it is generally speaking like the opposite. Like the very layout of the buttons and the screen accommodates an eased process of taking horizontal pictures. Of course, like this is super general and you can take vertical pictures with your digital camera and horizontal with your phone. I'm just saying that these are things we have adapted in such a way that they have this somewhat socially accepted use. And I find this fascinating. And I remember when I started taking videos every single day to create something like a trailer of my year, I would take them vertically because I didn't put too much thought into it. But now, after a couple of years of experience in this video of the day thing, which is, by the way, one of my most favorite parts of the day because it forces you to choose a moment of your day you would like to capture. So it kind of forces you to pick a memorable moment, even in a less memorable day. And like this, you just start romanticizing your life. And also, it is a great memorabilia at the end of the year because you have your year in a little movie. But anyway, so now, having done this for a couple of years, I have started, and I only started doing this in 2024. So I have started taking the videos horizontally because if I take them vertically, they're to be played only on smartphones and tablets without having an extremely non-aesthetic frame around them. And if you were to play it on a laptop or TV, you would get that frame if you took the pictures vertically, like the videos vertically. Because, well, laptops and TVs accommodate horizontal layouts. So, because I want the whole thing to be movie-like, I started taking them horizontally to be playable at any device without the frame that's unnecessary. And that is just, I think, so interesting how the different media we use with its different affordances just shapes and influences the content we consume and the content we create for and with that particular device. And this goes back to one of my favorite concepts in media, which is social constructivism, meaning that the media we use and create is in a conversation with society and is not in a linear direct relationship. Man, I miss being smart on topics I talk about. Because ask me about media, and not to toot my own horn, but like literally, ask me about media. I can talk about it for days on end, nonstop. And I will talk about it with such passion because I know what I'm talking about. But now with this whole statistical analysis thing, I just feel so extremely dumb. And I am interested. I'm just not knowledgeable enough yet to speak about it with confidence. But maybe in the future, or maybe not. But until then, I will be riding the media scholar wave. Honestly, I don't regret doing a media studies degree, even though it is a Bachelor of Arts, aka the synonym of unemployment, because it just nourished my soul. I mean, there were very low points, like very low points. Don't get me wrong, like the degree was nothing like I was promised. I complained constantly. I questioned it a lot of times, but I found it interesting at the end of the day. And if it doesn't eventually secure me a job beyond the fast food chain I'm working at, then at least I can nerd out here. And what better thing to get out of a university degree than unemployment but yapping rights? Am I right? Oh God, how I love the state of the job market right now. A master's degree is the new bachelor's degree, and a bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma. There's just devaluation in educational qualifications. And I said what I said because it is just so crazy to me. But like my friend who lives in Massachusetts was telling me how she needs a bachelor's degree to work in retail. Now, I'm not saying you don't need qualifications to work in retail. In fact, people who work in retail are the unsung heroes of the world alongside us restaurant slash fast food workers because we have to deal with the stupidity of people every day. In fact, you know how back in the day a lot of countries implemented mandatory military service? I think that everyone should work at least for a year or two in retail or any restaurant, any service industry of the sort to realize how epidemic stupidity is and to learn to treat workers with respect. Honestly, one of the biggest icks is treating the service people poorly. I don't care how educated, funny, handsome, and whatnot you are. If you are rude to a server, you're immediately a troll and you should live under a bridge away from society, and I don't want to look at you ever again. People were so rude to servers as if they cannot spit in their food or drinks. You never, and I mean you never, treat the person who handles your food and beverages with disrespect. And I will not be taking any ifs and buts. I don't give a single crap. The customer is not king, and I refuse to get disrespected by a two-brain-celled incel. Wait, speaking of, let me tell you what happened last week at work. So, there was this older couple that walked in, and I know how to approach people from different demographics. I'm not like an idiot. If someone is older, like a grandpa or a grandma, I talk to them in Dutch because they're less likely to know English. Of course, that is not the rule, and there are old Dutch people who speak English, but that is how I do it because honestly, the reason I do it like this is because most of the xenophobia I have experienced has been also from the older demographics, and I cannot bother being treated as a lesser being because of speaking a particular language that is not even my first language. So, anyway, this older couple walks in and they come to the till to order. So I greet them and I ask them what I can get for them in Dutch. And the man replies in English. So I assume that I have miscalculated and that they're not Dutch, so I switch to English for the next few questions about me taking their orders. And then he asks me, why don't you speak Dutch? When I was in fact speaking in Dutch to him in the beginning. And he didn't catch me in a good mood in which I felt like being mistreated and discriminated against. So I straight up told him, I talk to you in Dutch, but you reply to me in English, so I switched to English for you. I don't give a single flying fuck about this whole customer is king bullshit. I will not let anyone disrespect me. Especially at work, I get discriminated against by customers way too much, way too often, and I have had it with this. If one more person tells me Bulgaria is the same thing as Russia, I will flip. As an Eastern European and a Balkan in particular, I innately have a bad temper. We are very hardy people, we are very loving people, but we have a very, very short fuse. Here in the West, I try to suppress it because I am made to feel like I represent the entirety of Bulgaria and the entirety of Eastern Europe, and there are so many connotations that people perceive when you say you are Balkan. And here I try to not show my Balkan anger as much, but I'm not going to tolerate such behavior anymore. I am sick and tired of having to explain that Bulgaria is not Russia. I'm sick and tired of having to explain that I don't speak Russian, that Bulgarian is a language in itself. I'm sick and tired of having to explain that Serbia and Siberia are not the same. I'm sick and tired of having to explain that we use a different alphabet. And I'm so sick and tired of people's ignorance. And yes, it is not all people, but if one more person tells me they have never heard of Romania or Macedonia before, I will flip. And I'm not the best in geography either. The lowest grade I ever got in school was in geography. I cannot point every country on the map, but if someone tells me they come from a country, I'm not going to question that country's existence. It is as simple as that. And we're not talking about them being interested in learning more. It is like they approach it with such mockery in their tone, and I am done. But anyway, so back to the man and me speaking Dutch. The thing is, now this man has pissed me off, and now I don't want to talk to him in Dutch out of spite. You know, when you see someone and just from their aura, you know they're racist and xenophobic and they're just like, go back to your country type of person. Yeah, that man reeked of that. And I could sense it from a mile away. Wait, I'm European. I could sense it from 1.6 kilometers away. And I kid you not, I am trying. Don't come out here and tell me that I'm an entitled, ignorant expat. I am trying to learn the language. And I have been trying to learn the language. And I have been trying to integrate. I have been trying to speak Dutch to customers and to people in the stores and to customer service representatives. But every single time I try to do so, they hear my accent because inevitably I have an accent, and then just they immediately switch to English without me even requesting it. And sometimes I stick to Dutch while they talk to me in English, and sometimes I cannot even bother and switch to English as well. But the thing is, you cannot switch to English because it is easier for you than to put up with my accent and then blame me for not speaking Dutch. Literally, screw you. I am trying, and every time I am met by a wall. You can show a little bit of patience if I'm showing respect to your culture and your language. And this has been happening for such a long time that I'm so discouraged. I don't even try anymore most of the times. If someone at work is willing to put up with my Dutch, I will speak to them in Dutch. But someone literally asked me last week, why even bother speaking Dutch? Everyone knows you speak English. So it's like every single effort I put in this thing is met with a terrible, discouraging reaction, and I cannot force people to let me speak their language. Why are you gatekeeping it? I took Dutch lessons when I first came here, which ended up being a complete waste of time because my teacher was a native Dutch speaker and she couldn't understand why we were having trouble comprehending certain grammar rules or pronunciation stuff because it came natural to her. She has never had to learn Dutch as a foreigner, so she couldn't understand why the struggles occurred. And this could be a hot take, but I think that if you're attending classes to learn a foreign language, it would be more effective for your teacher to not be a native speaker because they have gone through what you have gone through and they're familiar with the difficulties because they were in your seat once. Like if someone asked me to teach Bulgarian, for instance, I would not be able to explain why certain things are the way they are. I just know that they are the way they are. You know what? Let's distance ourselves from the xenophobia and discrimination because I am starting to feel my blood beginning to boil. You know what is crazy to me? The concept of learning a different language. One with a different alphabet and an entirely different sound to the one you grew up with. That just blows my mind that you as a being are able to communicate in such a way. Well, I mean, I have done it. Like, I have done it multiple times, and none of the foreign languages I speak uses the Cyrillic alphabet, which is the one I grew up with. So It is not a foreign concept, it is just a mind-blowing concept. And next on my list is Spanish. I think Spanish is such a beautiful language and I would love to learn it. And I would love to be able to just sing the reggaeton songs I'm listening to and not just mumble some gibberish. Although, you know what, I'm a little bit conflicted because I don't know if I should brush up on my German and just get fluent at it. Just get fluent at it as if it's that easy, or like as fluent as can be, or just pick up Spanish. But because the thing is, all the languages I have learned by being taught by a person. But I don't have the money to afford Spanish courses now, so I would have to self-teach. And Spanish is a very different language from the languages I know. Like, it's a completely different system, completely different sound, some completely different like language family. And I know this could turn out very bad, at least like on at the least pronunciation wise. Also, what even further blows my mind when talking about languages is I learned English and German in Bulgaria with like Bulgarian translations. Like I was given the word and then I was translated it in Bulgarian. Dutch, I have been learning using English. And at a certain point, when I became decent at English, which I would hope I am, or at least decent enough so that you can understand this, but like I started learning English vocabulary without translating it to Bulgarian. I just used English, like either with synonyms or just like explanations. And like now, for example, I don't have to translate stuff in my head to understand them. I can just understand English and I can think. I have the ability to think in a different language. Like normally, on average, I think in Bulgarian, but I speak Bulgarian far less than I speak English because here my entire existence is in English, and I speak on the daily I speak Bulgarian for like a couple of minutes when I hear from my parents in the evening, and I have learned to think and express myself in a different language. Like, you cannot tell me that this is not strange. And like, yeah, I'm not the only one, but like, just like the concept of it, like, sure, it's a given. At a certain point, when you become fluent, you don't think about it, but it is just so strange if you look at it from like a distanced viewpoint. I think it was cows that had accents and they're mooing. So that would also be so weird. Like, do you think a dog from Bulgaria would be able to understand what a dog from Germany is trying to say? Because, like, for example, my dogs are a German breed, but like, well, one of them was born in Germany, but like, they've never lived in Germany, they've never been talked to in German. So, do you think they would be able to understand what's going on? I don't think so. Because, like, I don't know. Languages just in general blow my mind away because who created them? And why did they develop the way they did? And don't bring out Babylon. Yeah. I'm not talking about how everything originates either like from Babylon if you're religious, or like, is Babylon religion or is it just like mythology? I don't know. I am sounding stupid, so I would just move on. So don't talk to me about like Babylon. Don't talk to me about like ancient Greek and Latin. I'm talking about like who decided to combine these letters, who decided to create these letters and combine them in a particular way and give them the meaning they have and give them the sound they have. I have always wondered about this, like since I was a child, literally. It's been like a mystery to me ever since I comprehended what language is. And I will never not be amazed because why, for example, do we use the word sink to refer to sinks and not the word discombobulated to refer to sinks? Who created this social contract that we are referring to a single thing with a particular word? And why is the letter D pronounced D and not blah? And to the linguists listening to this, don't come out here explaining to me the Latin and ancient Greek origins of stuff, please. I know like a lot of words originate from that, but like also like ancient languages, like who created them and why, like how, how, and just like the very idea of language creation, how, who came up with it, and autonomy wise, this is probably a very stupid question, but if you grow up not among people who speak, would you be able to comprehend the fact that you have the ability to speak? I'm thinking now of the Jungle Book. And sure, the animals there spoke, but like, let's say the Jungle Book was an actual thing and a baby was brought up, like a human baby was brought up by pumas and bears and whatever, like gorillas, I think. Would that baby be able to replicate human words? Would that baby understand that it has the ability to produce words? Because language is taught. I don't think it's innate. Like making sounds, sure, but like you need to perceive a sound to be able to recreate it. And like, guys, I promise you, I am not on mushrooms. I am totally sober. It is just something that is so fascinating to me. Or like, speaking of innate, what blows my mind is that you can put a baby in an environment and they will learn the language of that environment where they live. And they will adopt it so seamlessly. And like, I don't remember anyone teaching me what to call things. I don't remember being taught the word book, for instance. Well, in Bulgarian, I mean. I very vividly remember being taught English. But how does one adopt a language when they don't know a language at first? And the fact that we can learn different languages to communicate with people from different parts of the world, it just blows my mind. Like, it's so confusing to me. It's giving me a migraine. And we use different sounds. And again, in different languages, the word ball is different. I don't know why I thought of ball. So let's just roll with it. So the word bowl in Bulgarian has nothing to do with the word bowl in English. And as someone who is learning different languages, you're adopting a new set of social contracts of what you call things. And also, who developed translations? How did you come to the conclusion that a certain concept, and in particular more abstract things, mean the same thing in different languages? Because objects you can point at, like that I can understand, but like, how, for example, did they figure out that the word knowledge and the word znanie are the same thing? I know that this is so mundane, but like, and it's so obvious, but like, guys, just think about it from such an existential perspective. Someone created sounds, created letters to symbolize those sounds, gave meaning to those sounds, created words out of those sounds, and gave those words a meaning. And we're just rolling with it. Isn't this totally nuts? Man, I would have thrived doing an anthropology degree. Don't get me started on when I was doing ethnographic and ethnographic research. Just noticing the mundane things that we have come to take for granted and tracing them back to what they mean, how they originated, why do we do them the way we do them. It is just so mind-boggling because there is no innate reason things should be the way they are. We have just constructed them like this over time. It is all social constructs. It is all meaningful simply because we have decided to give it that meaning. And we could have given it a different meaning, but we decided not to. And we decided to give it one particular meaning and no other meaning. And it's just, the very concept of language as a construct gives me a migraine. It just blows my mind. You know how I feel about group work. I've talked about group work a lot. And language is a group activity because we have all agreed that we will call bottles bottles and we will spell it in a certain way. If it were up to the groups I have worked on projects with, no languages would ever be developed. And what blows my mind even more is colors. What if we all see colors differently? And for example, what I see a name pink, you see a name blue, but because we have this, again, like social contract of what each color looks like and is called. We're just seeing the world in different colors. I've always wondered what my dogs see because apparently dogs are colorblind. And when I was little, another stupid moment, when I was little, I used to think that being colorblind meant that you're seeing the world in black and white. Or how do flies see the world? Because I know their eyes have like a different vision grid compared to us. Like it is more multifaceted. Like do they see many small images or like an overarching image? Like pixels. It's like literally pixels, but in nature. And like don't refer me to Ant-Man. Like I have seen Ant-Man, but like I'm wondering like, or like people who are like different heights, giving a totally different world perspective. And that in itself is also crazy because, as you can imagine, I have never not seen the world from my point of view. And the other day, when I was cleaning on top of like the shelf, I stood on a chair and I realized that there are people who are actually this tall, which seems kind of unnecessary and excessive. Like, don't you think? Like, why do you need to see the top of the cabinet? That's just literally a completely different world that is hidden to the rest of us who are not 700 meters tall. You know what? I can go on and on about this for days, and the only thing I would achieve is drive myself to an existential crisis. So I say let's leave it at this. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it didn't drive you to a phase where you question the entire human existence. And even if it did, you're welcome. Or I'm sorry, whatever. Well, thank you for listening, guys. I hope to see you in the next episode. But until then, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. Bye!